Hello, thank you so much for joining me. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 22 books. So I'm going to go through them as quickly as I can so that this video doesn't end up being really long. But you know that's going to be a challenge for me because I always talk too much about the books that I really enjoy. This particular video is about all of the new releases that I've read in 2025 that are Mafia romances. A couple of weeks ago I did the non-Mafia version of this, which ended up being 15 books in total, but this particular video contains only Mafia romances that I've read that were new releases in 2025. As I did with the last video, I'm going to rank them from my least favourite to my most favourite, but if you're wondering whether or not you should take the time to pick any of these new releases up, if you haven't read them yet, then hopefully this will help you decide. So in total there were 22 Mafia romances that were new releases that I've read in 2025, and 16 out of 22 of those I read as arcs. So the first one that I picked up, which I rated 3-star, was Maximus by Stella Andrews. Now this is an Italian romance, but it's only a short story. It was just around the 60-page mark, and I think that really did have an impact on the rating that I gave it, because I didn't think that the author had much time to convince us that this couple were in love, and in fact the way it was written really made me wonder why they would want to end up together, because I wasn't convinced by their one-night stand. Because this is a one-night stand romance set in Las Vegas, and it was between Maximus and Sierra. This was a simple case of an arranged marriage between these two people. They're both from Mafia families, and Maximus is arranged in marriage to Sierra. They both go to Las Vegas for kind of a final night of freedom before they're due to get married the following day, and of course they're going to bump into each other and spend the night together, and then the following morning, obviously when she's coming down the aisle towards him, they're going to recognise each other and realise they're about to marry the person that they had a one-night stand with the night before. And that is pretty much what this story is about. Moving on then to Unveiled by Jane Henry. This was another 3-star read for me. This was a Bratva romance, and it was book 3 in the Bratva King series between Semyon and Anya. Now I hadn't read any other books in this series, but I picked this one up as an arc, and I've read a couple of Jane Henrys before, but they've been a bit hit and miss for me. A couple I've liked, a couple I haven't liked so much, and unfortunately this one fit into that latter camp where I didn't particularly care for this story. Anya's brother is best friends with Semyon, and Semyon is part of a mafia family. Anya's brother happens to run up a debt with a rival mafia family, I believe it's the Irish, and Semyon then is forced into having to protect Anya because the brother kind of disappears. He goes on the run because he can't afford to pay back this money, and of course Anya is going to be a target, and so Semyon chooses to keep her safe and protect her by forcing her to marry him. And then of course we're going to start to unravel some more things about the plot, some more things about her brother and the relationship between her and this other Irish family, and kind of how it all connects together, and their romance is obviously going to go from there. So this was a fairly standard plot. We've seen this sort of thing before, but I don't think it was particularly well executed on this particular occasion, so like I say, 3 stars for that particular one. Next up then we've got another story on the shorter side. This one was a novella called Owned by the Cartel by Nikki Blake. This is the first I'd ever read from this author, and I read it as part of the Mafia Romance read along that we did earlier this year. I wanted to read some more Cartel romances, and this was a Cartel romance. It's called Narco Vows book 1, and we were following Valentin and Ariel. This is again a standard somebody owes a debt, because her ex-husband owed a debt to the mafia. When she was unable to pay, Valentin comes to collect the debt, takes a liking to her, and decides that he's going to collect her, keep her captive, and spend some time with her. Now he's not 100% sure exactly what he's going to do with her, but he's very attracted to her, and the more time she spends in his house with him, the more he decides that he's going to make her hers. Now, I thought this one did have potential, and I'll definitely read more from this author. The only thing for me, again, this was novella length, and I felt like there was scenes missing from this book that would have really added more depth to this story, more depth to the romance. Instead, we got a series of scenes where their romance was progressing, but nothing that really held them together. And so I almost felt like someone had written a complete book, but then had kind of like just skipped chapters to condense it down to make it shorter. But like I said, overall I was interested in this one, would read more from this author, but just a little bit too short, and the scenes didn't really connect together that well. But overall, again, this was another 3-star read for me. So that was all the 3-star reads I had. Moving up then to the 3.5 stars, and the first one I want to talk about is Death's Favour by Jill Ramsower. This is book 2 in the Moretti Men series, and it's an Italian/Russian mafia romance because our hero Tommy is part of the Italian mafia family, and Danica, as it turns out, is related to the Russian mafia because her father is actually the Pecan, and she didn't know that that was her father until fairly recently. And now she's in a situation where her father has come into her life. He's explained who she is, and now he wants to use her as leverage against one of his enemies, and he wants to try and arrange her in marriage to this guy called the Butcher. And now, of course, she doesn't want to marry the Butcher. Who would? She's pretty horrified by everything she's learned, and so she attempts to run away, and that is when Tommy comes into the situation because she happens to bump into Tommy and then eventually break into Tommy's apartment because she believes that this apartment is empty, and therefore she can squat there for a while and lie low to hide from her father. But it turns out that this apartment is actually owned by Tommy, and now she is Tommy's captive. And of course, as they spend more time together, they are going to form a relationship, and Tommy is going to vow to protect her from her father and from the Butcher, and their romance is going to go from there. Now, again, Jill Ramsower is one of those where I've read a couple of books from her. A couple I've enjoyed, a couple I haven't enjoyed so much, and this was kind of in the middle ground for me. It was okay, it was fine to read. I went through it pretty quickly. It was a easy, kind of fast-paced read, but it didn't really grab me. You know, I didn't really want to stay up late at night to read this one, and I felt it was a little bit lackluster in places, so hence the 3.5-star rating. But I did read this one as an arc, and that's why I was a little bit more generous and rounded it up to a 4 stars on Goodread. Then I've got Wicked Savage by Lilian Harris. This is book 4 in the Savage Kings series, and from memory this was the last book in the Irish family series that she'd been writing. This particular one was between Dinara and Killian. Now, for the most part, I've really enjoyed Lilian Harris's books, but they've started to get a little bit too over the top for me, and there's been a few things in some of her more recent reads that really just have felt short for me and have really missed the mark. This was a book that I didn't particularly enjoy at all, and again, because I read this one as an arc, I was fairly generous, gave it 3.5 stars so I could round it up to 4, but it was the weakest one of the books I've read from her so far, and was fairly disappointed. And the reason for that is because at the start of this book, Dinara and Killian meet in Constantine's sex club. They have an amazing night together, really form a friendship, become obsessed with each other, and Killian is all in. He is obsessed with her and falls in love with her. They start to have this kind of like secret affair because it's a little bit taboo. They really shouldn't be together. But as time goes on, he discovers who she really is, and that is the fact that she is related to Constantine and the Russian mafia. And this is a big problem for Killian because it's the Russians who unalived and tortured his mother, and so he holds a lot of animosity and hatred towards them. And so when he finds out that Dinara is in fact Russian and part of this family, he then determines they cannot be together and breaks up with her. But he does it in a really, really horrible, cruel way, and then kind of keeps her hanging because although he doesn't want to be with her, he can't be without her. So he really kind of leads it on, keeps her on the end of his string, as it were. And I really didn't like that part about him because he becomes very, very cruel and callous and just really doesn't let her go. And for me, he should have either made the cut off and just let her go, or just got over himself. And it was really, really frustrating because it took him a long time to come round and realise his mistake, even when the rest of his family had already said to him, we forgive them, we've moved on and you need to as well. But he just won't let this grudge go, and I just really didn't like that about this story. And so, like I say, one of the weaker ones that I've read from her and my least favourite to date. Then I've got Lost Kingdom by Emilia Finn. This is book 3 in the Underbelly Enchanted series, and in this one we're following Timothy Maloney III and Aubrey. Now this is another Irish mafia story, and again this one was a 3.5 star for me. rounded up to 4 stars on Goodreads, but the weakest in this particular series. Now, I was really looking forward to this one because the premise is that Timothy, the hero in this one, is the rightful heir to his mafia family, but he really didn't get on with his dad. He doesn't approve of the family ways, and he has left this mafia family and now kind of runs a bar in another city entirely. All this time though, he has been in love with a girl called Aubrey. She actually works in the coroner's office and she helps the police solve crimes, and so Timothy has kind of been part of her world for a while. But because of his past and his family history, he still has a lot of enemies. He knows that being with him could potentially be fairly dangerous for Aubrey, and so he kind of tries to keep her at arm's length. But it's been clear for a long time that these two really need to be together because they're both in love with each other. Now, in this one, we get to a situation where Aubrey is in danger, and on the blurb of this one, it really makes us believe that Timothy is going to take back his rightful place as the mafia heir in order to use the power at his disposal, the resources at his disposal, to save Aubrey and make sure that she is fully protective. Now, he does do this to a certain point, but then never goes past that point. And I really wanted Timothy to hulk out and become this really big, badass mafia guy, and that really doesn't happen. So I'm not going to say any more about this one. I've talked about it before, and you can go back and read my monthly wrap up for the month that I actually read this. I think it was all the way back in January, to get my full thoughts on this. But needless to say, I had such high hopes for this one. I had such high hopes for Timothy as a mafia boss, but he didn't fully reclaim his throne, didn't fully reclaim his kingdom, and therefore I was left a little bit disappointed with this one. But still a great series, a great read, and would recommend if you like the sound of what I've just described. The next on my list is His Juliet by Emilia Rossi. This is book 2 in the Empire of Royals series. This is an Italian mafia series, and this was a very loose Romeo and Juliet retelling, and the characters in this one were in fact called Romeo and Juliet. Now, the premise of this one is that Juliet owns a bookstore. She has agoraphobia. She doesn't like to leave her apartment or the bookstore, so the only places she feels safe are in her apartment or at the bookstore, and she follows one very specific path in order to get between locations. One night she's doing a stock take and her bookstore is broken into by our hero Romeo because he is hiding from one of his enemies who has been chasing him through the streets, and he's been rattling all the doors until he's found this particular bookstore, which is, the back door is open, so he makes himself at home and pretty much holds her hostage for the evening while he's, you know, lying low so that this guy can't come and get him. And of course, through the course of the evening, where they're trapped in this bookstore together, they get to know each other, become quite attracted to each other, and they continue their relationship together after that. Of course, things are going to get a little bit dicey. We learn much more about him, why he's running, who this guy is who's after him, and we find out that Juliet does have a connection to him as well that is going to put her in danger in the future, and Romeo is actually obviously going to have to save the day. Overall, I did enjoy this one. I had really high hopes for it though, because I really enjoyed the first book that Emilia Rossi had written in this series, but it wasn't quite as good as the first book for me, although it still was an enjoyable read, and I'm looking forward to reading more from this author. So overall, that was a 4-star read. Next up, I've got the first book that I'm going to talk about from Jagger. I've got quite a few Jagger on this list because I've been reading all of the arcs that he's been bringing out for his latest series, The Darkest Dance, and he's been bringing them out at a rate of about once a month, so I've got a few to talk about on this video today. And the first one is in fact The Darkest Dance book 1, which is an Italian romance, and it's called Dance of Deception. In this one, we were following Carmine and Lyra, and the premise of this one is that each of the heroes from the books are part of a mafia family. If they're not in charge of the mafia family, then they are one of the sons or a brother. In addition to these mafia families, there's also kind of a secret society, and there is 5 men, so basically the hero from each book, who wear masks, and they are kind of the court, and they are kind of judge, jury and executioner for the mafia underworld. So basically in their world, if someone breaches a mafia rule, they are the ones to take care of it, shall we say. No one really knows the identity of these people though, and they all wear masks, and Carmine in this particular book is a member of this society, and he is also known as the Hound because the mask he wears is of a hound. In addition to this secret society, most of the heroines from this series are all ballet dancers, and they all dance for the same kind of ballet, troupe, corps, whatever you want to call it. And so this is exactly the same. Now, Lyra is our ballet dancer, and she is a very good ballet dancer, but obviously ballet dancers don't earn that much money, and so she is desperate for cash, and so she hears about this gig that's going where you can go to this secret underground place, and the dancers are paid a lot of money to dance in this place, but they have to be blindfolded because they're not supposed to see where they are or what is happening about them. And of course, where they're being paid to dance is actually at this underground secret society club where the the court hangs out, and where Carmine as a hound is in attendance. While she's dancing, her blindfold slips and she tries to cover it up, but Carmine realises that she's seen some things that she shouldn't see, and as a result he pulls her to one side at the end of the evening and forces her to come into his world. Now of course she knows now who he is, and he does in fact let her go, and although she's supposed to be scared of him, she's actually very intrigued by him. Separately, she then hears that Carmine's looking for a wife and he wants it to be very transactional, and he's offering up $1 million for someone to kind of interview and become his wife, and she decides, hey, I still need that money. He says I can't dance there anymore, but now I've got leverage over him, right? So I'll make sure he picks me to be his wife because I'll blackmail him into it, otherwise I'm going to expose the fact that he is in fact the Hound. Of course, blackmailing Carmine is not the right thing to do, and he's not going to take too kindly to this, but he does indeed agree to marry her, and their relationship is going to go from there. Going straight then to the next book in this series by Jagger called Dance of Ruin. So this is book 2, and this is Nico and Naomi's story, another Italian romance, and in this one Nico is also part of this secret society, and he is known as the Raven because he wears the mask with a raven on it. Again, Naomi is a ballet dancer in this one, and her dad happens to be a politician. Now the issue is that her dad is trying to get rid of the criminal elements in the city, and he has got his sights set on Nico's family, so much so that he actually plants a car bomb that is designed to take out the head of his family and instead endangers the life of his sister, who happens to be pregnant. And so Nico is on a bit of a rampage and he wants to take revenge on this politician. However, because he's in such a position of power, he actually works in the White House, he can't attack him directly without raising suspicion, and so he decides what he's going to do is use his daughter and punish her in order to get back at her father. And so unfortunately for Naomi, that is her, and Nico comes after her. And again, these are very dark romances, these are very obsessed, over the top sort of heroes, and he's gonna make her pay. So he's gonna be quite cruel to her to start with, but over time he's gonna fall in love and they're gonna find a way to have a HEA together. Next up we've got Fierce Pursuit by Zoe Blake. This is the Ivanov crime family book 4. This is Kostya and Marina's story, and this is a Russian mafia romance. I absolutely love Zoe Blake. She writes absolutely fantastic stories. They're usually completely bonkers. The heroes are completely obsessed, over the top, don't take no for an answer, and they are so much fun. This particular one, like I said, follows Kostya, and he, at the start of this book, he was actually married to Marina's sister. It was an arranged marriage, they didn't love each other, but he was still a good husband to her. However, the sister actually had an affair, and she was actually trying to get in with another mafia family. She betrays this other mafia family and ends up being unalived by them. So now we're in a situation where Kostya is in fact a widow, and he was unable to protect his wife. The thing is, Marina's sister knew that her life was in danger and had said to Marina, if something should happen to me, I want you to take this bag, and it has the equivalent of $10,000 in it, and I want you to take this bag and run away and keep running, and hopefully no one will catch you. Of course, Kostya is very suspicious by this, and he decides he's going to give chase after Marina, and she really leads him all over the country, and he's always almost one step behind her but can never quite catch up with her until finally 6 months go by and he finally does catch up with her. Of course, by the time he catches up to her, he's become obsessed with her, obsessed with tracking her down, and also trying to figure out what's in this bag that's worth so much to all the people trying to come for her, because $10,000 is not a lot in their in the grand scheme of things for them and how much wealth they personally have. And so he's like, there's no way people are after her just for this money. There's got to be something more behind this, and together they're going to figure out what that is. And we are then going to establish this villain in the story that's going to carry on for the remaining books in this series about who is after them and what they're trying to do. But of course, in the process of all of this, Kostya and Marina are going to fall in love and get their HEA. So after that, then we have Twisted Proposal, also by Zoe Blake. This is book 5 in the Ivanov crime family. So very much follows on from the previous story. And in this one, we're following Artem and Victoria. Now, Artem is head of this particular Russian family, and he's come to the US because during Kostya's pursuit of Marina, he's kicked up quite a bit of a fuss. The local Russian family, who are their cousins, are not too happy. They're kind of stomping all over their territory. So Artem kind of comes over to try and smooth things over. While he's there, he's doing a deal with some other bad elements, shall we say, and it's there that he meets Victoria, because Victoria is actually the daughter of this man he's trying to do a deal with, but he clearly doesn't care for his daughter at all. He's actually beaten her, she's been tied to a chair, and he kind of offers her to Artem as part of this deal. Artem is absolutely enraged and livid that he would do something like this to his own daughter, so of course he decides he's going to unalive the father and rescue Victoria. But by rescuing her in a Zoe Blake's hero fashion, that actually means he's going to take full possession of her. She now belongs to him, and she has to completely toe the line and do everything he says. At first, he is content to let her carry on with her life. He's just going to put some guards on her and keep a watch on her. But when she puts herself in danger by going to a frat party, he decides his only response to that is to get into a helicopter, land on the lawn, and then take his gun and threaten all of the people at this frat party. So again, complete riot, absolute a load of fun, and just what you expect from a Zoe Blake book. Rated this one 4 stars. Okay, so we've covered books 4 and 5 in the Ivanov crime family series. Now I'm going to jump to book 7, because book 6 was actually my favourite of the newest batch that she's written, and so that will appear later on. But for now, let's look at book 7, which is Captive Prize, and this one follows Roman and Zoya. So Zoya is actually a rare kind of creature in these mafia stories. She is in fact in charge of her own mafia family, and she has been causing trouble for the Ivanovs. In fact, at the end of book 6, she is responsible for capturing Pavel, who's a hero from book 6, and so Roman is sent to go and rescue him, and Roman becomes obsessed with rescuing Pavel, but also obsessed with the woman who's taken him captive, and that is Zoya. In retaliation, he captures Zoya right back and takes her hostage, and he's supposed to be torturing her to get information out of her about what's going on, what she's trying to do, and to really figure out, you know, everything that's been happening in the last few books. But of course, he's going to fall in love with her, and then he's not going to be able to bring himself to hurt her or unalive her, and the rest of the family aren't going to be able to understand Roman's obsession, and so he's now going to really have to betray his own family in order to make sure that she is rescued and kept safe. So once again, a very over-the-top kind of possessive sort of hero. Lots of spicy times in Zoe Blake's books. Definitely check your trigger warnings, because these heroes can be cruel at first before they very much become kind. But absolutely, like the others, a fantastic fun read, and so easy to get through as well. I just absolutely love them, and definitely my guilty pleasure. So that was another 4-star read, and another one that I read as an ARC. Next up then, I've got Empire of Temptation by Mila Finelli. This is book 1 in the New York State of Mafia series, and it's also a spin-off from her Kings of Italy series as well. In this particular one, we were following Luca and Valentina. This is an Italian mafia romance, but this time it's set in New York rather than in Italy itself. And essentially, Valentina is the daughter of a hitman for the mafia families. She Doesn't really have anything to do with her father though, and is now a restaurant owner in the state of New York, not in New York City itself, but in a town in the state of New York. Her restaurant isn't doing too well though, so she is trying to kind of resurrect it, bring it back to life. Meanwhile, Luca is head of an Italian mafia family in Italy, and he is kind of blackmailed into trying to track down Valentina's father, and he thinks that actually if he can go to New York, be in close proximity to Valentina and kind of win her round, he'll be able to use her as bait to lure out the dad, and therefore he'll be able to take him captive and take him back to the person that's blackmailing him back in Italy. And so that's his plan. So he heads off to the US to try and seduce this woman, to use her as bait, and if that fails, then he has been instructed to basically kidnap her and bring her back to Italy and use her as bait regardless. Of course, then their relationship is going to go from there, right? Because he's going to turn up, he's going to help her with her restaurant business, he's going to turn her life around, they're going to be very attracted to each other, and as he gets to know her, he's going to realise how she isn't connected to this world at all, she doesn't deserve what's happening to her, and things are not quite as they seem. There's some other stuff going in the plot in here as to why he's been forced into doing this in the first place, and some things we start to figure out. Of course, I've absolutely enjoyed everything I've read by Emilia Finelli so far. I've really been enjoying this series. Not quite as good as The Kings of Italy. It's not kind of hitting me as hard as that series did. I'm not completely obsessed with it, but still a really, really solid mafia romance for sure. Would highly recommend, and gave this one a 4-star. Next up then, I've got Unholy Union by Lana Sinclair. This is a standalone for now, but I believe the author will be writing more in this series. In fact, I think this is actually a debut author, unless this author's been writing under a separate pen name. It's the first book that I can find from this person, but I picked it up as an ARC because I was very, very intrigued by the premise of this one, and it really didn't disappoint. I absolutely loved it and thought it showed so much promise. I'm really looking forward to reading more from this author in the future. In this particular story, we're following Kato and Sabrina. These two are arranged in marriage because they're rival mafia families. It's a true enemies to lovers tale, and they're very much hoping that their union is going to end the feud between their families and stop all of the unaliving, because they've had quite a lot of losses on both sides. The thing is, Kato has planned this all out, so it looks like it's an arranged marriage to bring a union between these families, but what he's really trying to do is take down the other mafia family from the inside, and hopefully he's going to take over all of the kind of the businesses to really bring down Sabrina's father. Meanwhile, Sabrina has agreed to this marriage, but she absolutely hates Kato, and she is determined to seek revenge on him for the loss of some of family members, and so she very much plots that she's going to unalive him at some point during their marriage, and she attempts to take him out on more than one occasion, but of course Kato is always going to be slightly one step ahead and prevent that from happening. So the animosity between these two is real, but also the chemistry between them is palpable. They have a lot of hate sex, very spicy read, and I absolutely just love this one. Honestly, it was so good. I was really tempted to give it a 4.5 star so I could round it up to 5 star, and the only thing that held this one back for me was just the fact that the ending was a little bit more convoluted than it really needed to be. Even though it was kind of really set up and wasn't particularly a surprise, I think the relationship between this couple, how they interact with each other, was enough to hold up this story, and it didn't need, in addition to that, this overly complicated plot. So that was my only criticism of this one, but like I say, really, really loved it. Thought it was absolutely fantastic for a debut author, and really looking forward therefore to what else this author is able to produce. Next up then, I've got Filthy Savage by Lilian Harris. This is the first of my 4.5 star reads. This is another arc because I am on Lilian Harris's arc team. This is book 3 in the Savage King series, and as book 4 was, this is an Irish mafia romance following the Irish family from her universe. In this one, we're following Fionn and Amara. Now this one really worked for me. I really enjoyed this one, and this was a tale of this couple meeting at a wedding, but they're going to different weddings. They just happen to be at the same venue for 2 different weddings. Amara is actually with a boyfriend, but he's not treating her particularly well, and Fionn is witness to some of the things that this boyfriend is doing and saying to Amara, and he decides he's going to step in. So Amara kind of leaves her boyfriend at this wedding, and Fionn says, hey, you're already dressed up and everything, why don't you join the wedding with me? And so Fionn and Amara then spend the day together at his brother's wedding, and they end up spending the night together as well. The next morning they go their separate ways, but several weeks pass and she discovers that she's pregnant. Now, she doesn't actually know who the father is because it could be her boyfriend's or it could be Fionn's, and she tells her boyfriend that there's a chance that he might be a father, but the boyfriend doesn't care one jot and basically tells her that she's on her own. So she then tries to track down Fionn and suggests to him that he could also be the father, but she's not able to find him because they didn't fully exchange information. In fact, she even lied about what her name was. And so what we discover is that Fionn has been desperate to try and find her. He really, really liked her and wants to spend more time with her, but cannot find her anywhere. He even puts all his best men on the search, but they come up with nothing. And meanwhile, Amara has no idea who Fionn is and can't get hold of him. And so 4 years pass. She's now a single mum and she's trying to make ends meet, and she is now working as a maid in this hotel. While she is working, she happens to witness a crime, and it's Fionn unaliving somebody. Now, she obviously recognises Fionn. Fionn doesn't see her face though, so he doesn't know who she is, but obviously he knows that there's a witness to the crime, and so he gives chase, right? He pursues her to try and make sure that she can't tell anyone what she's seen. And of course, when he finally catches up to her, he realizes that it's Amara and this woman that he hasn't been able to forget about for the last 4 years. And then of course he's going to discover that she's got a child, and when he does the maths, he figures out that there's a very strong possibility that this child belongs to him, and then he's going to pursue her relentlessly until eventually she agrees to marry him. I just, like I say, I really, really love this one. This one really did work for me, and like I say, 4.5 stars. Returning then to a Zoe Blake book, this is Sinister Promise and book 6 in the Ivanov crime family. We are following Pavel and Alina. In this one, Alina is witness to a crime. Pavel is doing something a bit similar to the last book actually. She is kind of a cleaner. She's working late one night and she happens to witness Pavel unaliving someone, so now she's a witness to a crime. She attempts to run, he chases after her and obviously is going to instantly fall in love with her, become obsessed with her, and decide that the only thing to do is to marry her so that she cannot go to the police about what she's seen. As I alluded to before, this book does get a HEA for this couple, but also ends on a cliffhanger, which really, really makes you want to then go on and read book 7 in this series. And I just absolutely loved it. I gobbled this one up. I absolutely love Pavel. He's probably the most unhinged of all the Ivanovs. He does some very questionable things and morally grey things to our heroine, but he is a standout hero for sure. Absolutely wanted to gobble him all up. And like I say, the way Zoe Blake left us on a cliffhanger for this one, it was brilliant. Really, really whetting the appetite to carry on reading more in this series. So would highly recommend. Returning then to 2 more Jagger Coles. The first one of the 4.5 stars is Dance of Madness. This is book 3 in the Darkest Dance series. We were following Nero and Melina. Nero is the wolf character, so he's part of the secret society. He wears the wolf mask, so he's the wolf. And of course, she is a ballet dancer. Now, she knows this girl and they're not particularly friends, and the girl is particularly cruel and thinks it would be hilarious to lure her to this mansion, this what appears to be this abandoned mansion. It's supposed to be haunted, and she kind of tricks our heroine into going to this place. What she doesn't know is that this mansion is owned by Nero, and he's very much into primal play, and he's been on this app where he's basically suggested that if a woman likes primal play, she can come to the house and they can obviously act out their fantasies together. So this girl that doesn't particularly like Melina kind of tricks her. She sets this all up. She thinks it's going to be absolutely hilarious that this innocent sweet girl Melina is going to rock up at this mansion thinking that she's just there to kind of do a bit of a test, a trial, like to be brave enough to go into this haunted house. But instead she's going to enter this house and Nero is going to be in wait, thinking that he's going to have a CNC scene with this girl, chase her through the house, have a bit of primal play action, only to find out that Melina has absolutely no idea that this is all going to go down. Still though, Nero is a Jagger Cole hero, and he's like, yeah, I don't think she's in the right place. She's obviously here by accident, but still, I'm very turned on by this scenario, so I don't think I'm going to take no for an answer. And Melina seems to like what's being done to her, so they're going to carry on from there. After this, of course, they are going to continue a relationship, and we start to figure out more about them, how they know each other, because these two have met before and they're going to continue to meet in the future and start to develop a relationship. And I really enjoy this one. Normally with Jagger Cole, by the third or fourth book in the series, I've kind of lost interest. They do tend to be quite samey, but I think Jagger Cole's done a fantastic job here of really making these books feel very separate, lots of different styles of character and relationships, and yeah, I just thoroughly enjoyed this one. It was a great fun time for sure. Moving on then to my favourite book of his series so far, which is book 4, and that's Dance of Devils. And this one, it's Keir and Brooklyn. Now, what I really liked about this is we've taken a break from this secret society in Men in Mass, because Keir is not part of this secret society at all. In fact, he's a Russian hero who knows about the secret court, but doesn't have anything to do with it, and for all intents and purposes people think he is very much against it and trying to bring it down. But we've learned from a previous book that he does have a family connection and is just really playing a part and really doesn't care about this court too much. What he does care about though is one of the ballet dancers at his ballet corps, because yes, Keir is the one who owns this ballet corps where all of these girls are ballet dancers, and one particular ballet dancer has caught his eye, Brooklyn. Like I said, I thought this was a great change of pace. This is an age gap and it's very much a kind of a protector situation, because Brooklyn is living out of her car. She desperately is in need of someone to take care of her, and Keir is absolutely the man for the job. He suggests that she come and lives with him. He takes care of her and they are then going to start a relationship with each other. We also discover that Keir used to be a ballet dancer himself, and he's actually quite a good coach, and she is training for an audition to get into this school actually in Russia. She wants to go to this school in Moscow, and he is kind of going to be helping her, mentoring her, coaching her through this. And of course then they are even more close proximity to each other, not only living together now but also training together as well. And so like I said, I thought this was a great change of pace. I absolutely loved Keir as a character, and like I say, my favourite one of the series so far, 4.5 stars. Next up we've got Precious Hazard by Neva Altaj. This is book 11 in her Perfectly Imperfect series. This is an Italian mafia hero and a Serbian mafia princess, because we're following Tara and Arturo. Tara is the sister of Drago, who is the Serbian mafia boss, and Arturo is the underboss for Salvatore, who is part of the Italian mafia. At the start of this book, Salvatore gives Arturo a task, and he says, I want you to get married to Tara. I want it to look like it's genuine, but really it's going to be an arranged marriage, and your job is to convince Drago that Tara really wants to marry you, and you've got to convince Tara to marry you. Of course, Tara laughs in his face to start off with when Arturo just goes up to her and says, hey, by the way, we're getting married. She's like, hell no, no, we are not. But Arturo has leverage over her and essentially blackmails her into agreeing to this, and they enter into this like marriage of convenience arrangement where she agrees to marry him for a year, and she will get $1 million per month, so $12 million by the end of this marriage, and she will then play along and happily convince Drago that it's something that she wants. Of course, there's a lot of animosity between them, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth between them as well. I really enjoyed their relationship, enjoyed their chemistry together, and while this wasn't as good as books 9 and 10 in this Perfectly Imperfect series, because they were standouts of the series so far, it still had all the things I love about a Neva Altaj book. So easy to read. I absolutely love the characters, love the chemistry and the romance between this couple, and I just thought it was fantastic. I particularly liked the quiet moments between them. There was a lot of moments of caretaking where they both really looked after each other. He would cook for her every day, and she also looked after him while he was sick. So just a thoroughly enjoyable read, and would definitely recommend. Okay, so just 3 more to go and 2 more 4.5 stars before we get to my 5-star read of the year. So next up is Empire of Seduction by Mila Finelli. This is book 2 in the New York State of Mafia series. This follows on from book 1 and is also more connected to the Kings of Italy series than the first one, because Vito is the brother to Enzo, and Enzo of course is the hero from Mafia Madman. At the end of the Kings of Italy series, Vito kind of inherits the Canadian mafia estate, if you like. That becomes his empire because he takes over from Enzo's wife's father's territory. And so he is now kind of based in Canada, but very close to this New York town where Luca from the previous book has kind of set up camp. In fact, the heroine in this one, Maggie, is very much friends with the heroine from book 1, and she owns her own vineyard, her local vineyard, with her brother. So they're co-owners of this vineyard. Now at the start of this story, Maggie meets Vito in Las Vegas. They are there having an amazing time, have a fantastic weekend together. They kind of pick each other up, having an amazing time together. Then a couple of weeks pass, maybe a week, 2 weeks pass, and he turns up at the vineyard and she thinks, who is this guy? Who is this guy? He's clearly obsessed with me. He's a bit of a stalker, clearly. He's come to find me. But actually that is not the case. He's actually there for her brother, because her brother was also in Las Vegas, but he had a bit of a gambling problem and gambled half of their vineyard away to Vito. So now Vito is majority owner in their vineyard. Maggie is absolutely livid, wants to get rid of him, and doesn't quite realise to start off with who Vito is and how dangerous of a man he is. And of course he's not going to say no. And there's something in him that wants to own a vineyard, right? Because he wants to be the North American version of Fausto, who obviously has a massive vineyard in Italy. And so he's determined to turn this business around. Of course Maggie is not going to be too happy about it to start off with. She's going to try and thwart him at every turn, but Vito's going to hang in there, and he's very, very attracted to Maggie, and he makes it his life's work, if you like, not only to turn around this vineyard but also to win Maggie over, and eventually of course he is going to be able to. So really, really enjoyed this one, 4.5 stars, and I actually had the good fortune to pick this one up as an arc as well. Next up, my last 4.5 star that I want to talk about. This was so good. I really enjoyed it. This was another arc that I picked up, and that was the Kingpin's Call Girl by Annika Martin. This is currently a standalone, and we were following Luca and Edie. Now, Luca was actually head of the Albanian Mafia, so also quite an unusual type of mafia. We don't see Albanian mafias too often, and if we do, they're usually kind of the bad guys that we're trying to get out of our cities. But in this case, we absolutely love Luca. He was a fantastic hero. What I really liked about this book is the author really leaned into some Albanian culture and some of their superstitions as well, which kind of really added to the plot of this story. And I'd never read anything from this author before, but I really, really enjoyed it and definitely will read more. I must confess, when I first read it, I didn't really have high expectations, not because I thought it looked bad, but because I just never heard anything about it. And I only ended up picking this up as an arc because I'm in Zoe Blake's arc team. She had to delay one of her books and she offered this book as an arc instead. And so I thought, why not? I'll just give it a go. And I absolutely loved it. At the start of this book, we find out that Edie's sister has gone missing, and Edie is trying to find out what happened to her sister, and she thinks it's got something to do with the Albanian Mafia. She goes undercover, as it were, not completely undercover, but she starts to ask questions on the street, and she ends up being in the wrong part of town, and she ends up getting arrested by a police officer and arrested for sex work. And she basically is like, no, I wasn't on the streets trying to sell myself, I was looking for my sister. Now the police officer's like, well, that's not what I saw, and actually if you don't want me to charge you, then maybe you can do something for me. And he suggests that she goes undercover properly then with this Albanian Mafia to see what she can figure out, because he is trying to bring down this mafia. Now she gets to this sort of like bar, and she does attract the eye of somebody in this Albanian Mafia, and he decides that he's going to have her for the evening. So she kind of plays along, listen to their conversation, see what she can figure out. But Luca happens to turn up. He also happens to be in the bar. He takes one look at her and decides that she is going to belong to him. So he takes her from one of his men, takes her back to his hotel room and propositions her and says, basically, I want you to be my beck and call girl for the next couple of weeks, and I'll pay you to do that, but you will not be with any of my other men and you'll be with me. And so this is completely ironic, right? Because she's first arrested for being a sex worker when she wasn't, and now because she's working with the police to go undercover with them, she kind of ends up as a sex worker or having to pretend to be one. But of course she's going to be very, very attracted to Luca. They're going to start to form a relationship and she's going to start to trust him and really like him. And then we're going to start to discover things about what's going on, why this police officer is so obsessed with Luca and why he wants to bring him down, outside of the fact obviously he's a criminal. But there's more going on here than meets the eye, and as time goes on and she starts to fall in love with him, she can't bring herself to betray him, and so she's left in a very difficult position, right? Because she's supposed to be working for the police, but she doesn't want to betray him, and so she's gonna have to try and notify him in a very subtle way that he is being watched, and things are going to go from there. Like I said, I absolutely love this one. I thought it was brilliantly written, absolutely love the plot of this one, and one of my favourites of all the new releases that I've read so far in 2025. Okay, so one final book to go, and it's my only 5-star read out of this entire list, and that is Be With Me by Gabrielle Sands. And I did finally manage to get my hands on this edition. It came all the way from a seller in Australia, but I had to get my hands on this edition with the sprayed edges with the berries on, and I patiently waited. I was hoping that I would get one of her PR boxes because they're absolutely stunningly beautiful, but obviously there were limited boxes going to international people. My channel isn't big enough to warrant her sending me one. I had everything crossed, but I didn't get one, and instead I waited very patiently until this became available to purchase. And like I say, I purchased it from Australia and it arrived a couple of months ago, I believe, but it's not been in a book haul yet, so I'm going to share it again when I record another book haul video. But I absolutely love Gabrielle Sands. She's one of my favourite Mafia authors, and she's just started a new series, and this is book 1 in the House of Ferrera. It's very much a spin-off to her Fallen series, and it's following the Italian Mafia family that we saw towards the end of that one. And in this particular story we're following Romolo and Mia. Now, Romolo is one of the Ferrero brothers, part of this mafia family, and his job really is to seduce women, discover their secrets, and use that to either blackmail them or use them as leverage to get other information. So he's the secret keeper, the information gatherer, very useful resource for their family. Meanwhile, Mia is the daughter of a local politician who was running for mayor, and again, it's one of those situations where he is trying to get rid of the criminal elements in town, has got his sights set on the Ferrero family, and is trying to get enough evidence against them to get them all arrested and bring down their family. So of course, Romolo is tasked with trying to find some dirt on this mayor, and ends up deciding that he's going to target Mia to you know, use her to gather information, but potentially as leverage in the future as well. And that is the real basis for their relationship. Unbeknownst to Romolo and Mia though, they do have a connection, because Mia is part of a friendship group. She went to school in Europe with 3 other girls, and one of those girls also happens to be part of a mafia family and is in fact arranged in marriage to Romolo's brother. So Mia's path does cross with Romolo when she goes to an engagement party for her friend, and she ends up at the Ferrero house and kind of crosses paths for the first time with Romolo. They don't necessarily get off on a good footing, but he's very intrigued by her, and like I said, when he decides he's going to set his sights on her to try and dig up some dirt on her father, their relationship is then obviously going to go from there. These two though, Romolo in particular, is a very damaged sort of hero. He comes with a lot of baggage, he's been through quite a lot, and he's very traumatised by something that happened to him when he was younger, and it's just amazing to see how our heroine in this one, Mia, really tries to break down his walls, is a real comfort to him, sees him for who he really is, and helps him to think differently about himself, and that he's not a bad person, and that he is capable of way more than just seducing women. Now, there's some shocking things we find out about this family, some things that happen to this family that is really going to move this story forward and be an overarching plot point for the remainder of the series. But I think Gabrielle Sands has done such a fantastic job at setting this family up. Really excited to read more in this series and get the stories of Romolo's other brothers for sure, and would highly recommend, like I said, my 5-star and my favourites of all of the new Mafia releases so far in 2025. So there we go. I tried to rattle through those as quickly as possible. Obviously that's 22 books, that's quite a lot to get through, so this is still going to be a long video, but I'll try and edit it down as much as possible as well. So if you made it this far, I want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch and spending time in your busy day to watch what I have to say about Mafia romances, which I absolutely love. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me, and all that's left for me to do is thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. As long as you're wearing a what's the word called when it's eye mask? As long as you are blindfolded, that's it. Sorry, someone was at the door, so it distracted me. Next up then, I've got Empire of Temptation. Oh. Because the hero in this one, Vito, is actually Enzo's brother, and Enzo was a hero from it's saying no battery.